This happened about 5 years ago, when I was still living with my parents in a small neighborhood just outside the city. It was one of those quiet streets where everyone knew each other, and nothing bad ever seemed to happen. Until one winter evening, when something about our block suddenly didn't feel right anymore. It started around 9:30 p.m. I was in my room watching a movie when my mom called me downstairs. She said there was a man standing under the street light across from our house, just standing there, not moving. At first, I thought maybe he was a neighbor or someone waiting for a ride. But when I looked out the window, I saw he was facing our house. He wasn't on his phone, and he wasn't smoking or pacing. He was just staring. I could barely make out his face because of the shadows, but I noticed his posture. Stiff, hands in his pockets, head slightly tilted. My dad went outside and shouted, "Can I help you?" The man didn't answer. He just slowly turned and walked down the street. We thought that was the end of it, but the next night, he came back. Same time, same spot. He stood under that same street light for almost 20 minutes. This time, we called the non-emergency police line. They said they'd send a patrol car, but by the time an officer drove through, the man was gone. Over the next week, he showed up 3 more times, always around the same hour. Sometimes he'd be a few houses down, sometimes across the street, but always on our block. My mom was getting paranoid. She made me close my curtains at sunset, and my dad started leaving the porch light on all night. One evening, I was home alone. My parents had gone out to dinner, and I was upstairs doing homework. Around 9:45, I glanced out the window, and my stomach dropped. He was back, but this time, he wasn't under the streetlight. He was standing at the end of our driveway. I froze. I didn't know whether to call my parents or the police. The guy was closer than ever, his face finally visible under the porch light. He looked to be in his 40s, with sunken eyes and a half smile, like he was amused by something. I ducked down so he couldn't see me and grabbed my phone. When I looked again, he was walking up the driveway. That's when I ran downstairs and locked the door leading to the garage. I called 911, whispering that someone was trying to get to our house. The dispatcher stayed on the line with me. I crept toward the living room window and peeked through the blinds. He was now standing right in front of our porch, looking up at the second-floor windows. Then I heard it. A soft tap, tap, tap on the front door. He didn't knock. He just lightly tapped, like he was testing to see if anyone would answer. I stayed completely still, clutching my phone. The dispatcher said officers were on their way. The tapping stopped after maybe 30 seconds, but those seconds felt like an hour. I didn't dare move until I saw red and blue lights flash through the windows. The man backed away slowly, then took off running when the police car pulled up. They chased him down the street, but he disappeared into the woods behind the neighborhood. A few days later, one of the officers came back to give us an update. He said they found footprints leading through the trees, and that this wasn't the first report. 2 blocks away, another family had called about a man fitting the same description, watching their house from the sidewalk. They never caught him. For the next month, I slept with my curtains shut tight and my phone under my pillow. Even years later, every time I see someone standing too long on my street, that same cold feeling crawls up my spine. The feeling that he might have come back. This happened 2 summers ago when I was driving home from my night shift job. I worked at a small grocery store about 20 minutes from where I lived, and my shift usually ended at midnight. The route home was mostly empty. Just a few houses, long stretches of road, and then a two-lane highway that ran through a wooded area. I actually liked the quiet drives. It was peaceful, and at that hour, there was rarely any traffic. But one night, that quiet became the reason I almost didn't make it home. It was a Friday, and I clocked out around 12:15 a.m. I remember because I texted my mom that I was heading home. The first 10 minutes were normal. I had some music playing, windows slightly open, nothing out of the ordinary. Then, about halfway through the drive, I noticed a pair of headlights appear in my rearview mirror. They were a little too close for comfort. At first, I didn't think much of it. Maybe they were just another late-night driver. But the longer I stayed on that empty stretch of road, the closer they got. I switched lanes. They switched too. I slowed down. They slowed down. When I sped up, their lights stayed right behind me. That's when I started to feel it. That sharp, cold panic that hits your stomach before your mind even catches up. I was still about 10 minutes from home, and there weren't any open gas stations or stores along this part of the highway. Just trees on both sides and long, dark road ahead. I took the next right onto a smaller side road that led toward a residential area. The car followed. At that point, I was sure someone was following me. My hands were shaking as I tried to think. I didn't want to drive home. Whoever this was would know where I lived. So I decided to keep driving in circles through the neighborhood. Every time I turned, those headlights turned with me, always the same distance behind. I drove like that for almost 10 minutes, hoping they'd give up. But they didn't, so I came up with another plan. There was a small police substation about a mile away. If I could just make it there, maybe they'd back off. I turned onto the main road again, my heart racing, barely keeping the speed limit. I didn't even check if the lights were still behind me. I knew they were. As I neared the station, I slowed down and turned into the parking lot without signaling. I pulled right up to the front, where a patrol car was parked. That's when the other car stopped, right at the entrance. It idled there for a few seconds. Headlights pointed at me. Then it slowly reversed, turned around, and drove off into the darkness. I sat there for a while, too shaken to move. An officer eventually came outside to check on me. I told him what happened, and he looked down the road but couldn't see anything. He told me I did the right thing, that sometimes people will tail random drivers just to mess with them, or worse. I waited a few minutes before heading home, making sure no one was behind me. This time, when I finally pulled into my driveway, I just sat in the car for a while, staring at the empty street, trying to calm my breathing. The next morning, I noticed something that made it worse. Deep tire marks across the dirt patch near the corner of my street. The same kind of tread as the car that followed me. I never found out who it was or why they chose me that night. But for months after, I couldn't drive home without constantly checking my mirrors. And every time I saw headlights appear behind me, my heart would stop, just for a second, until I knew they weren't following me again. This happened last year when I was working the night shift at a small 24-hour convenience store just outside of town. It wasn't a bad job. Quiet most nights, a few regulars, and a steady paycheck. But one night made me seriously question ever working alone again. It was early December, around 2 a.m. The air outside was freezing, and the parking lot was empty except for one old pickup truck parked near the edge of the lights. I had seen it sitting there when I started my shift at 10, but I figured it belonged to someone at the motel across the road. The first few hours were normal. I restocked shelves, cleaned the counter, and watched a few customers come and go. Then around 2:15, I heard it. A soft tapping sound from the big front window near the entrance. It wasn't the bell or the door, just tap, tap, tap. When I looked up, no one was there. At first I thought it was maybe a branch or something hitting the glass, but there were no trees that close. I stepped around the counter, leaned forward, and scanned the lot. That's when I saw the truck door was open. I waited for someone to step out, but no one did. The truck just sat there. Engine off, driver's door wide open, faint light glowing inside. I stood there for a moment, trying to listen. All I could hear was the faint hum of the coolers behind me. Then came the tapping again. Tap, tap, tap. This time, it was coming from the side window, the one near the storage hallway. I grabbed my flashlight and walked toward it, my heart pounding. When I shined the light through the glass, I caught a glimpse of something. A man's face. Pale, thin, pressed right up against the window. The second my light hit him, he ducked out of view. I jumped back and ran behind the counter, fumbling for my phone. I called the police, telling them someone was outside trying to get in. While I was on the phone, I kept my eyes on the front door. The automatic sensor light flickered on outside, like someone had walked by it. Then I heard a sound that still gives me chills to this day. The click of the back door handle. That door was supposed to stay locked. The delivery drivers used it during the day, but at night, I always double-checked it before closing the gate to the stockroom. I ran toward it, heart racing, and saw the handle slowly turning. Someone was trying to open it. I shouted that the police were on their way, hoping whoever it was would hear me. The handle stopped turning. A minute later, red and blue lights flashed across the windows. I ran to the front as the officers pulled up. When they searched outside, they found the old pickup truck, still parked there, still running, but empty. In the passenger seat was a small paper bag with an old flip phone, some rope, and a kitchen knife. The officer told me to lock the doors and call my manager. They towed the truck away and said they'd check the motel cameras across the road. The man never came back, but I still worked that job for another 2 weeks before quitting. Even now, every time I pass by that store at night, I can't help but picture that pale face against the glass, just waiting for me to look away. This happened a little over a year ago when I was still in college. Back then, I used to stream small gaming sessions a few nights a week. Nothing big, just a handful of regular viewers and a couple of friends who'd drop in to watch. It was fun, until one viewer started taking things way too far. She went by the name Luna_93. At first, she seemed nice, always complimented the stream, donated small amounts, and was really active in chat. She even started joining every stream right when I went live. After a while, I noticed she knew more about me than I'd ever said on camera. One night, I mentioned it was cold outside and she typed, "Yeah, looks windy where you are." I laughed it off, thinking she was just guessing. But she was right. The wind had picked up hard that night. Then it happened again. I was drinking from a blue mug, and she commented, "I like that cup. You use it a lot." I'd never shown that mug on camera. The webcam only framed my face and upper shoulders. It was weird, but I ignored it. Until one night, She sent a message that made my skin crawl. She said, "You should close your blinds before bed." I froze mid-sentence. My blinds were open, and my apartment was on the second floor. I ended the stream right there. For a few days, I didn't go live. But she kept messaging my Discord account, asking why I wasn't streaming. She'd send things like, "I miss your room light," or "You looked tired last night." I blocked her account, thinking that would be the end of it. But the next day, I got a new friend request. Different username, no profile picture. And the first message read, "I told you not to ignore me." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing small creaks from the hallway outside my apartment. Probably nothing, I told myself. Around 2 a.m., my phone buzzed. An unknown number had texted me. "Nice poster on your wall," it said. That was it. Just that. I didn't respond. Instead, I turned on every light in the apartment and looked out the window. Nothing but the empty parking lot. I called campus security, and they sent someone to patrol the area. They didn't see anyone outside. But when I went to check my stream setup the next morning, I noticed something I hadn't before. A tiny red light on my webcam was on. Even though my computer was off, I unplugged it immediately and checked everything for spyware. I didn't find anything obvious, but I ended up buying a new laptop and webcam that same day. I stopped streaming altogether after that. 2 weeks later, I got a message from another small streamer I used to follow. He said, "Hey, isn't this your old viewer?" He sent me a clip. It was from a random live stream where a girl was talking to the camera in a dimly lit room. Behind her, taped to the wall, was a photo of me, a screenshot from one of my old streams. Her account name? Luna93. I don't know how she found out where I lived or how she was watching me through my webcam. But ever since then, I cover every camera lens in my house, even the one on my phone. Because somewhere out there, she might still be watching.